Hello, and welcome to Kansas State University. My name is Maria Beebe. I am the Associate Director at International Student and Scholar Services, and I'm also the responsible officer for the J Exchange Visitor Program. This orientation is for J1 research scholars, professors, short-term scholars, and student interns. It is meant to provide you with important information regarding immigration regulations and your responsibilities as a J1 exchange visitor. A copy of these slides, as well as other resources, will be linked on the J Scholar Orientation webpage. The topics to be covered during this orientation is information about our office, regulatory information, getting started at K-State, and getting settled, hopefully giving you resources for things that you might need, getting around Manhattan, as well as cultural exchange opportunities. The Exchange Visitor Program was created as a way to provide cultural exchange and hopefully in a way of promoting peace through mutual understanding. Okay, International Student and Scholar Services. What do we do? Well, we provide immigration services to international students and scholars. We provide various programs and workshops that help everyone acclimate to the United States. We keep students and scholars informed of social and academic events and provide updates on regulatory information. We provide information about the Manhattan community and sometimes things that are happening around town. Our current office hours are Monday through Friday from 9:30 to 12 o'clock noon and from 1:30 to 4. The best way to contact me is by email. My email is provided. I'm very responsive to email as long as I'm in the office. But if for some reason I'm not responding and you need immediate assistance, you can call our front desk, and the phone number is given here, or you can email ISSS. Lots of information can be found on our website under ksu.edu/ISSS. Listserv. You were added to our listserv with the address that you put on your check-in form. If you wish to have messages sent to a different address, you'll need to email me with the current address, with the address that you were added to the listserv, as well as the address where you want things sent. So for example, if you entered a Gmail address on your check-in form and then excuse me, later you got a KSU email account and you would prefer that all your information is sent to your KSU email account, you will need to email me with your Gmail account address and say that you want everything changed to the KSU email address. And I will make that change. Through our listserv, we send out important immigration reminders and updates, and this was vital in the last couple of years throughout the pandemic as travel bans were issued, travel bans were revoked, information about vaccinations and entering the U.S. So we were keeping all our students and scholars abreast of all these changes, which happen quite regularly, through our listserv. So it is important that you're able to get this information and that you read it. We also send out information on events that may be of interest to the international community, as well as information on all the programs that we sponsor through our office. Okay, let's move on to regulatory information. So this is a checklist of your responsibilities as a J1 exchange visitor. These will also be provided on the orientation webpage. So you have to have health insurance. The minimum requirements by the U.S. Department of State are listed on our website, and they were mailed to you with your DS 2019. If we will track your health insurance, begin dates and end dates. You also need to report change of address or phone number to ISSS within 10 days of the change. So first option is to email me. Second option is to email ISSS with that change. If you email ISSS, please specify that you are a J1 research scholar, professor, short-term scholar, or student intern. Report any early departure. This has to be reported to ISSS. Again, I'm the best option to report directly to me. If you or your dependents are departing before the end date on your DS 2019. You have to file an annual income tax return. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. If you're not receiving a salary from K-State, you must file the form 8843 with the Internal Revenue Service. Have your DS 2019 signed when traveling outside the United States. You need to keep a valid passport, and your passport should be valid for 6 months into the future. You must keep your DS 2019 current, and you need to retrieve and check information on your I-94 each time you enter the United States. Health insurance. Every J1 exchange visitor and J2 dependent is required to obtain health insurance which meets the minimum requirements specified by the Department of State. This insurance must be maintained throughout the entire program participation. If you are benefits eligible at K-State, that means you will be getting insurance through Kansas State University. Be aware that the only plan that meets the Department of State's requirements is Plan J. In addition, this plan does not cover medical evacuation repatriation. So you have to buy that as a standalone policy. Again, this was mailed to you, so you have a hard copy. It was sent to you with your DS 2019. In addition, on our Scholar webpage, I have a listing of providers that that will meet the minimum requirements of the Department of State, as well as those providers that sell a medical evacuation repatriation as a standalone policy. If you have questions, again, email me those questions. These are the minimum requirements. Okay, on to income taxes. So every year, calendar year, is the income tax year. And everyone has to file their income tax return by April 15th of the year following the calendar year that taxes are due. So for example, for 2021, for the calendar year 2021, everyone files their taxes by April 15th, 2022. Everyone must file a Form 8843 with the Internal Revenue Service, irrespective of income or days of presence. This also applies to dependents. ISSS purchases an online software called SprintTax to assist students and scholars with preparing the federal Form 1040-NR and state income tax forms. Tax presentations will be available from Sprint Tax around tax season. We will notify everyone of the availability of these programs through our listserv. You must wait to receive your W-2 for employment earnings or 1042 for stipends before filing a tax return. If you are not getting any income from Kansas State University, you will not receive either of those forms. Withholding tax. If you are getting money from Kansas State University, this may apply to you. As a non-resident, withholding tax may be applied to some or all of your payments made to you at a rate of about 30%. 65 tax treaties are in place to reduce this or to exempt that income. Opportunity to claim a refund via year-end tax return is available when you file your tax returns. If you expect a tax refund, then it is important to keep existing bank account open until after the refund is received. So for example, if you worked at K-State during the 2021 calendar year, but you're leaving the country in February, around the time that you'll be filing your tax return, you should leave a bank account open because the Internal Revenue Service will only, they won't send you a check abroad. They will only send the money to your bank account. So you need to keep that bank account open until you get your refund. Implications of not filing a tax return. Well, you're required to comply with all U.S. laws, including those related to the Internal Revenue Service. Filing tax returns, even if it's only the 8843, is part of maintaining visa status in the United States. Not filing could affect future immigration statuses. For example, if you later on want to change to an H-1B visa, which is a work visa, or become a lawful permanent resident. Fines and penalties and interest can accrue if you owe money to the Internal Revenue Service. In addition, or even if you don't owe money, you might be due a refund. So you could be missing out on that refund if you don't file the form. Here is a link for information on international taxpayers. There's some good information on that website. Also, be aware of scams. The Internal Revenue Service will never contact you by mail, email, or by phone. They will only send notices through the U.S. Postal Service. Also, save your tax forms for 7 years. Excuse me. Okay. This is an example of a DS 2019. You all have one, and I want to just point out some important areas that you should be looking at and be concerned with. So the area there with the arrow, this is the validity dates of your DS 2019. It has a begin date and an end date. Okay. Right next to that is your exchange visitor category. Your exchange visitor category is either a research scholar or professor, a student intern, or a short-term scholar. If you're a research scholar or professor, you can be in J1 status up to 5 years. If you're a short-term scholar, you can be in J1 status up to 6 months. And if you're a student intern, you can be in J1 status up to 1 year. Okay. Now, if the end date on the DS 2019 is shorter So if the period is only where it says form covers period, if that period is less than the maximum amount of time you can remain in J1 status, I will contact your supervisor about 2 months prior to the end date on your DS 2019 to ask if your supervisor would like to extend your stay. If you would like to have an extension earlier than that, or if it's getting close to the end date on your DS 2019 and you would like to stay longer and I haven't contacted you, you should contact me and we can discuss how we can get this extended either before I contact your supervisor, or if your supervisor either hasn't responded or does not want to extend your stay. So at the bottom left, it says this section shows if you are subject to the residency requirement. We're going to talk about the 2-year residency requirement at a later slide, but it's important that you know where to find that information on your DS 2019. On the right-hand side, there's the travel validation section. If you travel outside the United States and want to re-enter the U.S. to continue your work on the same DS 2019, this section must be signed by must be signed by someone at ISSS so that you can re-enter the country. If you don't have it signed, you will encounter problems at the port of entry. In order to get that signed, you need to bring the original form into our office at least 2 weeks prior to your travel. There's a form we'll ask you to fill out. We'll want your name, your address, your phone number, your email address. There's some statements that you'll need to read and sign and attest to, and you will need to provide your travel dates, even if they're not exact, kind of an estimate of your departure and your return date. Okay, your I-94 is called your arrival departure record. The I-94 is issued to those who are admitted as non-immigrants to the United States. To retrieve your I-94 or get further information about the I-94, go to this website. I also provided this information in my cover letter to you with the DS 2019 on how to retrieve this. You'll need to do it every time you enter the U.S. and make sure that it's accurate. If it isn't, please contact me. So this is an example of the I-94. When you checked in with our office, if you didn't bring a copy, we printed one and gave you a copy. The information, the admit until date, it should always say, if you're entering as a J1, it should always say D/S. D/S stands for duration of status. This refers to the program period on your DS 2019 plus a period of 30 days for the purpose of travel. So in other words, I'm going to back up a second here. Sorry. Okay. In other words, you are in valid J1 status as long as your DS 2019 is valid, and you get an extra 30 days after the end date of your DS 2019 to remain in the United States. You can't work during that time, but you can use that time to prepare for departure. So for example, if you need to sell your car or close bank accounts, you can also travel during that time. If you want to visit some sites around the U.S. or visit other family or friends, you can do so. An example is if your DS 2019 expires on June 30th, you can remain in the United States until July 29th. So just add 30 days to that end date, and then you need to depart the U.S. Okay, now on to visas. Your visa is the stamp in your passport. It has an expiration date. And normally it's the same expiration as the expiration on the DS 2019 as the 2019. It's okay that your visa expires while you're in the United States, so long as you have a valid DS 2019. So I'm going to give an example. Your current DS 2019 is valid until June 30th, 2022. You're a research scholar, and we gave you 1 year initially to come. At the end of that year, your supervisor has more funding and wants to keep you maybe for another year. We extend your DS 2019 until June 2023. Well, your visa expired June 30th, 2022. It is okay for you to remain past that date as long as your DS 2019 is extended. You only need a valid passport to enter the United States. So if you depart the United States after your DS 2019 has been extended and your current visa stamp is expired, you will need to get a new visa to come back inside the United States. You can only apply for a visa outside the United States at a U.S. consulate. There are some special exceptions to having a valid visa to enter the United States, and that is when you travel to Canada or Mexico, you're there for less than 30 days, your DS 2019 is valid and is signed for travel, you can return to the U.S. with an expired J-1 visa. And there's a link there that gives you more information about the rules on that. But that is basically, if you go to Canada or Mexico, less than 30 days, DS 2019 is signed for travel, you can get back on your expired visa. The next two slides are about the 2-year home residency requirement. There's a lot of information on this, and I am just going to summarize, and you can go back and read these. You're subject to the residency requirement usually for one of two reasons. One is your occupation is on the skills list. So that basically means that your country wants your skills back. So if you're a chemist, for example, and you're from India, it's possible that the Indian government wants people back with chemistry skills. So you would be subject to the 2-year home residency requirement. The other reason you would be subject is if you were funded by your government or the U.S. government. You will be subject. What does that mean? Well, for one thing is you can't change your status in the United States to any other non-immigrant category. For example, you can't change from a J1 to an F1 or an H1B. So I'm going to give an example. And this happens, this is a common example. You may be here doing your research for you may be here as a research scholar doing research for your master's degree, or you could be a student intern. And you want to, at the end of your program, you want to start your PhD at K-State, or you're a student intern and you want to start a master's program at K-State. Well, you can't change your visa from the J1 to the student visa, that is the F1 visa, while you're in the United States. You have to depart the country, get an F1 visa, and return. You also can adjust your status to an immigrant visa. So that means become a lawful permanent resident, also means getting a green card. They're the same thing. You can't change your status to an H-1B, that is a work visa, until you satisfy that home residency requirement or you apply for a waiver of the 2-year residency requirement. If you're not able to fulfill the home country presence requirement, you may be able to apply for a waiver. And it's important that you contact me before applying for the waiver. I can't assist you with the application of that, but I can provide you resources, and I can also go over the repercussions of applying for a waiver. It's important that you understand those repercussions before you submit your application. The repeat participation bar. Okay, so this is has nothing to do with the 2-year home residency requirement, but it's very important that you understand what this means. A J1 professor or research scholar becomes subject to a 2-year bar on repeat participation as a research scholar or professor. This means that once the DS 2019 program period ends, you cannot return to the United States as a J1 research scholar or professor for 2 years from the end date on the DS 2019. If you are here as a student intern, you can't return to the United States as a research scholar or professor for 1 year from the end date on the DS 2019. Short-term scholars are not subject to this repeat participation bar. Okay, so let me give you an example. We have a student intern that is here and completes his or her program, goes home, graduates, gets his master's degree, and wants to return to do her master's research as a research scholar. Well, you can't do that until you have been outside the United States for 1 year. So be aware of that. This is also important for research scholars. So sometimes there is collaborative work and you come as a research scholar, you complete your program, you go home to your home university, and then a new project comes up and you want to come back to the United States, maybe to the same lab, maybe a different school. You need to be aware that you can't return for 2 years once you get to the end date on the DS 2019. So it's very important. This is another reason why you should notify my office when you depart earlier than 30 days prior to the end date on your DS 2019. I will adjust that end date so that you start getting credit for that period of departure. Okay, employment. All activity, teaching, research, institute, internships are limited to Kansas State University, specifically in the department listed on the DS 2019. So you can do work if you're here as a student intern in animal science, you can't get a part-time job in housing and dining. Okay, you can't work anyplace else except for the department that's listed on your DS 2019. Scholars may engage in occasional lectures or consultations, but I have to approve that before you do it. And there's a process for that. So if something comes up, for example, you are asked to give a presentation at a conference, and they want to pay you for that, they want to pay you an honorarium. That could happen, but I have to be notified prior. We've also had examples of people doing consultations for private companies because of the research they're doing. And again, that can happen, but I have to be notified and I have to approve it prior to the beginning of that activity. Participation in the J-1 Exchange Visitor Program is subject to termination when a visitor engages in unauthorized employment. So if I don't authorize it, you can't do it. And if you do it, I have to terminate your record, which will have negative repercussions on any future visas to the U.S. If you're unsure, please contact me. Don't guess the answer and don't get immigration advice from your friends. Dependents. So J2 dependents can enroll in classes. They don't need to be full-time students. They can apply for work authorization through USCIS. However, I do suggest that you contact me about that, about timelines, and things like costs and things like that. I will also provide information on this webpage on how to apply for work authorization. Right now, processing times are very, very long. Spouses orientation is held at the beginning of each semester. We send out information on our listserv about that, and your spouse is more than welcome to attend. If your spouse or other dependents will come at a later date, please see our website on how to request a DS 2019 for them in the future. The Department of State requires that I provide everybody the Wilberforce pamphlet. So here it is. It's basically information about your rights as a worker in the United States. And this pamphlet is a way to prevent human trafficking or labor abuses. I don't think you'll encounter any of that here at K-State, at least I hope not. So, but you should be aware of what your rights are while you're in the United States. Okay, getting started at K-State. Hopefully you all have your ID card. If you don't, you can go to the ID center in the student union and bring your DS 2019, your passport, and a letter from your hosting department that indicates you are a visiting scholar or student intern. You actually should have received an invitation letter from the department, and that would work for this purposes. To get an EID, you must be granted special access. The HCS liaison in your department can request this. If you're going to be an employee, you will receive all of this information as part of the onboarding process if you haven't already received it. Social Security. You can only apply for a Social Security number if you're being paid by K-State. How do you apply if you're working at K-State? Well, you must be in the U.S. for 10 calendar days. You must make an appointment by calling them at this number. You take your DS 2019, your passport, and your I-94, as well as a letter from your department that states you're working at K-State to the Social Security Administration office. You should receive your card within 7 to 10 days. It will be mailed to your mailing address, so you need to ensure that you have an accurate mailing address and that your name is on your mailbox. In the inside of your mailbox, your name needs to be in there so that the post office knows that you're living at that address. Banking. Some banks require that you have a Social Security number to set up a bank. For example, Kansas State Bank and Community First require a Social Security number. However, other banks will allow you to set up an account with just your passport. A Social Security number is not needed. For example, these include but aren't limited to Commerce Bank, which is there is a branch in the Student Union, and United Bank and Trust. If you're not eligible for a Social Security number, you might want to call the bank and ask them if they require a Social Security number before you go in to set up an account, if you plan on setting up an account. Getting around. Getting a driver's license. We have information on our website about getting a driver's license. We also have a recorded program called Kansas Driving and Insurance Laws. When you apply for your driver's license, you will need 2 documents that establish your residential address. This can be challenging if you just moved here. The documents must have your name and address on it. So for example, you can use a utility bill. If gas, water, electricity, cable, if any of those are in your name and you get a bill, even if you get your bill online, you can print out that invoice and use that. You can ask the department, the academic department, send you something with your name and address on the envelope and use a departmental envelope to mail it in, and you can show that you received it. So it would be postmarked, it would be sent to your address. You can bring that in. If you have to pay for your trash, that's another invoice that you will get. If you get a bank statement, you can ask the bank to mail you something. So long as you receive it and you bring that envelope with the postmark on it, the driver's license should honor that. Again, questions, running into difficulty, please email me. There is public transportation. It's called the ATA bus. You can go to their website for information on their routes and how much it costs. For other opportunities or other options in the city of Manhattan, I've provided this website. You can use a bicycle. It's a cheap and easy way to get around town. Manhattan's not that big. It is strongly recommended that you purchase and use a lock to secure your bike when it's not in use. If using and parking your bike on campus, you're supposed to register your bike with parking services. A registration is free, but you do risk getting a parking ticket if you don't register your bike. I'm not sure how all that works, but you can register online and get the information at the parking services website. It's also recommended that you wear a bike helmet while riding your bike as well. Green Apple Bikes. This is a bike sharing program. It allows users the ability to pick up a bicycle at any self-serve station and return it within 4 hours. More information can be found at this website. Cultural opportunities. Opportunities with our office. Well, we provide various programs and workshops that help you acclimate to the U.S. We have a list of our programs on our website. We also offer something called Coffee Hour, and that's a presentation provided by international students, and they're about their home country. So if you want to learn something about another country or culture, you're invited to those. Those programs happen 5 times a year, and they're free. Again, a full list of our programs can be found at this website. If you're a postdoc, we do have a postdoctoral association. It was established in 2014. Its mission is to support recent PhDs engaged in research at Kansas State University. I've provided a website for that group as well. Sports and physical well-being. You can access recreational services at K-State. They have a great rec center. We do have to pay. If you're not an enrolled student, you have to pay to use recreational services. The Manhattan Parks and Recreation Department also offers options on community facilities as well as sports. So if you like to play volleyball or basketball, you want to play softball, there are adult teams as well as children's teams. So if you have dependents here that want to play soccer or want to play softball, there are options with the Manhattan Parks and Rec Department. We have a public library in Manhattan. It's a great resource in Manhattan. They have lots of children's programming. You can borrow books for free. You can borrow DVDs for free. You can borrow music for free. They also have audiobooks and ebooks. So if you have an e-reader of some sort, you can borrow books in that manner as well. You do need to get a library card. So you would have to go to the public library and you have to prove your address. So again, you need something that shows that your name and your address. If you have a driver's license, you can use that. And you apply for a library card. It's free, as well as all what they have to offer is free. Check out their website for more information. If you're interested in the arts, these are some options in Manhattan. The McCain Auditorium is the largest venue, and that's on campus. They have nationally and internationally acclaimed artists come, dance, music, theater. They have it all. The K-State Theater Department offers plays on a regular basis, as does the dance department and the music department. So you can get information from these websites. We have the Manhattan Arts Center in downtown Manhattan. It's a small venue, but it is a very nice facility, and they offer plays and music as well. The art museums, we have a Strucker Nelson West Gallery downtown, as well as the Beach Museum of Art, which is on campus. The Beach Museum, besides being an art gallery, also offers programs for both adults and children. So you can get information from their website. If you like the outdoors, I highly recommend the Konza Prairie. It's about a 10-15 minute drive east of here. It's maintained by Kansas State and the National Science Foundation, I believe. It's natural tallgrass prairie. They have several hiking trails from 2 to 6 miles. And it's just lovely. I highly recommend, if you like to be outside, that you get out and see the Konza. There's a link here to state parks in Kansas. So there's lots of state parks that you can go hiking, camping, canoeing, kayaking. And by the way, Recreational Services also has a rental program. So you can rent canoes or kayaks. And then you might even be able to rent camping gear if you like to do that. The Tallgrass Prairie is a national monument, and that is That's about an hour drive south of here. That's much like the Konza Prairie. They have guided tours and hiking, as well as environmental education programs. Hiking actually is one of my most favorite things to do. So if you ever want recommendations on where to hike, please feel free to contact me. Education. You can find English classes offered at the Manhattan Area Technical College. There is a cost associated with that, but you can enroll as a J1 as well as your dependents can enroll in English classes. Um, in addition to that, you can find non-credit classes at University for Man or UFM Community Learning Center. They usually don't offer English classes, but they have a wide variety of classes from cooking to archery to just a wide variety. It's a great way to meet people in the community. The classes are small, people are friendly. And they're usually just fun things to do at a minimum cost. You can have cooking classes. You can learn to do stained glass. I mean, just a lot of things. So check it out and see if there's anything you might be interested in. It's a fun evening. Usually the classes may only be one night or 2 or 3 nights. Just a fun night out. I am required to give you information on the exchange visitor program. So here is the mailing address, their email address, or their telephone number, as well as an emergency hotline. If you have any issues, complaints, or nice things to say, you can email them. They are responsive and you will get a response. If you run into any problems at K-State, of course you can contact me and I will do everything I can to help you resolve that problem. Again, I want to welcome you to Manhattan. I've provided a link to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. This website will give you a calendar of what's happening in Manhattan and surrounding communities. So it's a great resource if you're looking for something to do. Again, welcome. If you ever need assistance or if you would like to meet with me, please feel free to email me and we can set up a meeting in person, by Zoom, on phone, whatever is most convenient for you. Thank you.